Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it's Duckphil here. We're going to watch a Zerg versus Terran match. It's actually another one from the LiquidSnute replay pack. His opponent, starting down at the bottom right-hand side here, is our red Terran player playing for Team Millennium. It is M-ForGG. And of course, our hero of the day down in the bottom left-hand side of Newco Precinct is LiquidSnute. And as you can see here, thirsty for Terran blood, he says, so we'll see if he is going to get any of it today. Of course, M-ForGG, a really decent Brood War player back in the day, before he moved across, became a well, it was sort of like he was very much anticipated as one of the big movers coming across from the Brood War scene, and then suddenly, like, I believe he just absolutely trounced his Code A matches and destroyed everyone, and then suddenly in Code S he dropped out, and is kind of all that happened to him. But of course, he has moved across to Europe, and Team Millennium is now part of that team, doing a decent job, of course, streaming quite a lot, showing us that he still has what it takes to do some good gaming, and we'll see if he is able to pull something out here today against Snute. Of course, Snute, one of the new recruits for Team Liquid, has just been doing a wonderful job, has basically been jumping up to the top of the foreigner rankings, if you will, as one of the best Zerg players, as well as you know, just being a very good player in general. A couple of things that I do love to see in Snute is his usage of overlords. Of course, in Heart of the Swarm, we've got the new mechanic of the Widow Mines now coming out of Terran players, and Snute's been one of these players who said, you know, he sort of said, you know what can tank that? Overlords. You know what can also help with that? Overseers and Changelings. And through many of his games, especially in this replay pack, you see him, even against Protoss as well, will just group up a whole bunch of Overlords and then float them across while he is pushing ahead with an attack, whether it be with, you know, Ling Bane, Muta, or if it's, you know, a Roach Hydra composition against Protoss and these kinds of things. He's also very well versed in throwing out the Vipers and using their Abduct and Blinding Cloud and all these kinds of cool things. So I'm really interested to see how he's going to go against what is generally considered pretty impressive micro of M-ForGG. So we'll find out if M-ForGG is going to go for a bio style or a mech style. Of course, it is possible to do mech, especially on this map. We'll talk about that as in just a second. We're just having a look at what M-ForGG is up to. Of course, just the 1-Rax expand, nothing too fancy coming out of him. Is going to get the double gas just behind this. So we'll probably see a Reactor Hellion build coming out of the Terran player. Meanwhile, for Snute, just going for a little bit of gas to make sure he's got enough gas to pick up speed. Of course, speed, despite not being not as popular as like a getting it very quickly sort of tool in Wings of Liberty, has now become almost an essential, you could possibly argue, just because of the fact that Terran players can get Reapers out, and Reapers can be quite pesky in the hands of a well-versed micro player. They can, you know, they can pick off 1, 2, maybe even 3 workers, or perhaps just the first few Zerglings that come out from the Zerg player, but they are something that you do need to be careful of, because of course there are still a couple of builds that are out there. Of course, the 888 that comes out very quickly, and there are a couple of you see them not as often anymore. Back in beta they were a lot more popular, but the odd 2 or even 3 racks Reaper just very quickly to try and get a lot of harassment done on the Zerg player. Before GG, he's got those very cool Marines. They're much beefier with this new skin that you get when you reach, I think that's the level 30 reward. I can't actually remember. I don't actually have that one yet. I haven't been playing enough, just watching a whole lot of replays, but we were talking about mech before. It can be quite possible on this map, just because of the fact that you've got a very easy to take third basis. You can just simply come down here. You can then, of course, cover this position from multiple spots here. You've got, you can put down tanks in these regions here that cover all of these side portions. Of course, the odd tank can sit up here as well. And then, you know, you can sit on 3 bases, and a 3-base meching Terran, just sort of turtling up, getting all the upgrades rolling, is something very scary to behold. So it is something we certainly could see here on this map. You do see it, as we said, from time to time. Not as often as I would like to see personally yet, but we'll see if he's going to go down that path. It looks as if we will get a reactor mine opening. Very interesting opening there from M-ForGG. I was actually looking at a replay yesterday, and I think who was it? It was I can't actually remember, but there was someone who was talking about actually opening up with Widow Mines and not with Hellions, and this is actually the first time I've seen someone sort of go down this particular path as of late, at least at a very high level. Of course, sometimes at lower levels you do see people just crank out the mines as quickly as they can, but this is the first time I've seen those two mines come out very quickly from the Terran player. Of course, Snute, he's going down his own tech path at the moment. Double Evo chambers going down. Of course, a little bit of creep spread getting started out. That's one thing we'll keep an eye on for Snute, is the fact that just continuously through the game, this guy continues to just constantly pump out the creep tumors and get the creep spread rolling. He may suffer the loss of some of the creep tumors throughout the mid and late game, but he just continues doing it. It's a wonderful thing to see, and it is really good, and hopefully a lot of the Zerg players will start doing this kind of thing, because a lot of the time you do see players just sort of forget about it around about the 25 to 30 minute mark, once a few of their tumors have stopped moving out, and a lot of them have died, and the Terran is continually pushing. You see a lot of Zerg players just sort of stop with the spread of that creep, but of course it's a very powerful tool, giving your units a little bit of a speed boost and also giving you that vision as well. So M-ForGG is going to have a quick poke up towards the natural base, finds that there are a couple of buildings here looking to obstruct the movement of those Hellions, but doesn't actually get too far. But he actually will get across with the Banshee, now pushing through inside the back end of the main base. Cloak now kicking in for M-ForGG for the Terran player there. Gets a couple of kills. We currently got 8 kills on this Banshee. Not too bad at all. The Queen is going to be able to deflect this, of course. With the Banshee a little bit low on health, is not going to be able to push too much against this. But with the second Banshee now coming in, we'll probably see him just continue to attack. Just sort of pushing in every now and then, dropping in with those Banshees, saying hello, picking off maybe a drone or two. Probably won't get too many more than that, but anything is better than nothing, I tell you what, when it comes to harassing a Zerg economy, because as we look at the economy of Snute, is continuing to boost up that drone count up to 55 at the moment. Is just getting out some defensive units at the moment. Of course, we just saw some Banelings finishing up. Of course, some Lings are also on the way, and he's actually going to push in a couple of those Widow Mines at the front, proving worth their weight in minerals there. Taking down a whole lot of those Lings, and now we can see the Hellions pushing inside the third base of Snute. Gets a little bit of damage done, not a huge amount, as we look at the worker kill tally. Just 9 for the moment, not exactly a massive total, and of course the majority of that has been done by the Banshees that were inside the main base. So Snute is defending against most of these attacks relatively well, continuing to boost up that drone count, getting some of these upgrades rolling as well. +2 on the Carapace, +1 on melee, and now we can see that the Banshees are going to come back across, cloaking up, looking to see what damage they can get done, targeting down some of those drones. Of course, it only takes 2 shots from a Banshee to kill off drones, and now as we can see with 2 of them there, he can actually just target them down and quickly destroy a lot of those drones. So the drone kill count continues to climb up to 15 now. He's actually taken out a Queen as well. It looks like this last remaining Queen may be able to get the job done, targeting down one of the Banshees, actually the wrong one. Unfortunately, this one is actually 1 shot from death, but Snute not able to target that one down, and the other 2 Queens do come across, and finally he is able to end that aggression. So M-ForGG is now looking to take his third base. Of course, we did have an Overlord here dropping down some creep. A couple of Lings will try and push through and see what damage they can get done, but M-ForGG has now moved. He has actually moved into a mech style here. We've got 5 factories are now out. Of course, his 4th command center just being built now. Double armory is about to finish off the 1-1 upgrades for those mech units, and that is going to be quite a useful contribution there for the Terran player moving into this particular strategy, which can be very powerful. It is very slow, of course, but can be extremely powerful when you utilize it all correctly. So we see him take his third base now. He's just looking to get that economy going up to 59, or 62, I should say. 62 SCVs there for GG. There we go again, M-ForGG, and it looks as if he is going to start producing some of these Thors as well. Also very useful at making sure he's defended against any kinds of threats. They are wonderful against mutas, of course, when the mutas all clump up, and you can try and just knock them all down with a couple of shots from the javelin missiles. But of course, some players like to actually use them in their high impact payload mode, despite the fact that, of course, they do really good splash damage. You can actually see them do really well against the mutas when they don't clump up, because you can sort of just single target them and really quickly burst them down. And it looks like Snute is going to come across, spots the Thors, gets a couple of hits with Widow Mines on those mutas there, and they have to be very careful, kind of clumping up a little bit there. But the Thor is going to go down. No repair and no real other form of air defense here from 4GG. So we see that the Thor does go down. A few of these ground units are not going to really be able to do too much either, and SCVs come across to try and help repair that bunker, but Snute with wonderful micro just pushing across, taking out the SCVs, building turrets. One turret finally does complete, and a Thor pops out, so he will be okay for now. He's just suffered quite a few losses there. It's not only just the fact that he did lose a few of those SCVs, but he did lose the Thor, lost a couple of those Hellbats as well, stopped the mining at the natural base. As we can see here, it did dip down a little bit for the Terran player, but also it's given Snute cover to pick up his 4th base. He's also looking to take a 5th now as well, and with all of that in mind, of course, Snute's economy is really going to kick into gear and provide him with the resources and, of course, the tech, which is going to be slowly coming along to get a really decent mid and late game army. So this is, of course, a point where, as a Zerg player, you're looking to think, well, how am I going to deal with this mech? Because this guy has obviously got some really decent control because he is an ex-Brood War player. He's going to be very well versed in moving all of these units, when to siege, when not to siege, when all these pushes are meant to come out, all these kinds of things. And as we can see, he's going to have to get prepared for a big push coming along from 4GG. It looks like the Thor's now coming about. A couple of big hits on that flock of mutas. 3 of the Thors now coming along. In fact, it is going to be a total of 5. This is a really big move out here for 4GG because he is going to be kicking in with that 2-2 upgrade. This is a very important point where he needs to get across the map. He needs to deny a 4th base. This is a very key factor here for the Terran player. He's now moving along up to 172 supply. The units continue to pour out of both players. 4GG is going to be, well, he's going to be contested in this push by a lot of banelings. There are going to be a huge total out, 27 coming out of the Liquid Zerg player here. He is going to be in position relatively well. It looks as if he is going to try and do a multiple flanking push here, but tanks have now sieged up. Of course, the Hellbats do an excellent job against a lot of the ground units here as well, and Snute is just waiting. He is setting the trap, and there it is, sweeping in from all sides there. Snute is just going to continue to roll through all of this, the tanks blasting away at a lot of those Banes, and while, well, that was a really interesting battle. Snute actually lost quite a lot there, but of course 4GG is going to lose these Thors, and unfortunately for him, that is going to be pretty much the main component of this push, because without them, he can't stop mutas, and he is going to have to fall back. So, relatively speaking, I would say that actually fell to Snute, despite the fact that he did lose the majority of his units. Of course, as a Zerg player, you're thinking, well, as long as I can defend and keep my economy intact, it doesn't really matter how much I actually lose on the field of battle, because all of these units, the Lings, of course, the Banelings, and all these kinds of things are very cheap. But here we go. Looks like 4GG will continue with this push. Of course, as we mentioned, the Thor's a big part of his main army here, and he has got a couple more now coming into the battle, but the mutas sweep across. No magic boxing from Snute, but he is able to still take down Thor number 1. Gonna look to Thor number 2 as well. Of course, the advantage that Snute has right here is that this is a 5th base. 4GG is not aware that there is a 4th up the top. You can probably assume it at this point, but he doesn't know for sure. And with all of these Thors now going down, he has taken out the 5th base, but I mean, Snute is still in a pretty decent position. 102 drones. 102 drones. He's going to lose some of these here, I think. Oh no, he actually keeps them alive. Still at a count of 102 for Snute, but he will be able to push back and keep his Terran foe at bay for the moment. But it looks as if 4GG behind all of this is able to get his own 4th base up and running. A little bit surprised it's not going to be this one here, just due to the fact that this is a little bit easy to defend against ground units. Of course, you can just drop down the destructible tower here. It puts down some debris, and that blocks off the ground path. You can also put down a couple of turrets every now and then, just to make sure you are protected against possible air threats, such as drops, mutas, and the odd broodlord that may come about. And that is actually one thing which I was wondering which particular tech that Snute is going to go for at this point. It looks as if he is going to go for an Ultralisk style here, pumping up the upgrades there. 3-3 about to finish for those melee units. And speaking of the melee units, Snute just pushing across, going to deny that 4th base from mining. He is doing a wonderful job of keeping his opponent in the dark when it comes to his economy. And, well, 4GG is currently at 58 SCVs. Of course, when you're playing mech, the SCV count doesn't necessarily matter too much, just because of the fact that you're going to be spending a lot of your gas is going into the units, and therefore you do have a lot of extra minerals, which means that you are able to throw down a lot of extra command centers, orbital commands, and these kinds of things, which give you mules, which Of course, as we can see here, just excellent for mining. They can keep your SCV count lower because you can use mules instead of SCVs. And so the count at the moment, you know, 62 is actually... I would kind of feel that's not actually too bad right now, given that he's got all of these mules out on the field. 11 mules are out mining right now for 4GG. So, you know, his economy is still going to be in an excellent position, despite the fact that he has been losing that 4th base. But he is going to try and establish a 5th up towards the top. Going to switch that into a planetary fortress. Of course, that should be able to defend against a big pack of lings like this, but it will not be able to help out against the Ultralists that are about to come along as well. And 4GG looking for some more harassment with those Vikings, but they did go down. The planetary fortress does not complete, and forces are cancelled there. Snute is in a very decent position right now. Is going to come along, actually gets a wonderful surround on the stores and the Hellbats there. He does trying to, well, it looks as if 4GG may be able to take down a couple of those, in fact, he takes down 2 of the Ultralists, that's about it. And then it loses a whole bunch of Thors for the as a payment for that. So it looks as if 4GG is going to try and hold everything together. His 3-3 upgrades are now about to kick in as well, which really do help out. But at the moment, he doesn't have a large count of tanks. We're currently sitting on just 8 tanks. And sort of at this point, there's sort of static defenses through the middle section of the map. He's just trying to zone out his opponent. Of course, this is a very common tactic as a mech Terran, is just to sort of create a line. If we look on the minimap there, just to sort of look at the position that he is creating, of course, 4GG wants to just make a line across this point here where he can say that is a no-go zone. You're not allowed to come through here at all. And it looks as if the Mutas are going to be just totally going against that particular order of business today. He's going to be cutting down a couple of these SCVs, not too much of a worry before Thors pop out. They're going to say hello and take down pretty much all of those Mutas there. Will he get a last shot off? Yes, he does. Takes it down to a count of 3, and Snute will start to switch his tech across. It looks as if he is going to pick up some more Ultras. We've got a Nidus network being built, Zergling still continuing to come out, missile upgrades being built, of course. Snute just allowing himself the options to switch into Hydras and Roaches and these kinds of things. And of course, one thing I really do love to see against a mech player is someone actually utilizing Nidus Worms to drop off Roaches inside a main base, force the Terran to just sort of, you know, be much more mobile with their forces. Of course, what you can do, we sort of mentioned it before, in fact, he's going to do it right now. Snute coming in with a drop-off of Banelings, Lings, and Ultras just popping in here, taking down a few of the units that are popping out of the factories, but the Lings will not, I don't know how much damage they're actually going to get done. It looks as if he will be able to kill off a few more of those Thors. The Thors now just coming across, the Ultras with 5-3, just chewing through all of them. 4GG forced to just pick up everything and move house back home. Meanwhile, back at the 5th base, the 4th base, sorry, he did have to lift that. Lings and all sorts of things came through. Also lost the 5th base across to the side, and Snute is just absolutely everywhere right now. This is the kind of thing that Zerg players really need to utilize against a mech player, is you force them to move out of position, you force to move these slow and very turtley sort of Thors and tanks out of position so that you can take out their extra economy. Of course, at this point, Snute really does need to acknowledge the fact that if 4GG is able to sit on 4 or 5 bases, then things can start to get a little bit messy. But what he is doing here is he is just moving around the map, attacking the 4th, attacking the 5th, of course, dropping into the main as well, taking out some of the production there. And that means that 4GG is going to start to lose some of his economy and start to really fall down in his production power. As we can see, he's down to 27 SCVs, so while he is deflecting these attacks, for the most part, he is starting to lose some of his economy here, and with Snute really starting to pick up the ultra count, it is moving into the realm of like 15 or something like that. He's up to 10 at the moment. There's a couple more in production. Of course, we still have a very large drone count right now. 102 drones are out for Snute right now. He's picked up his, he's got his 5th base. He's taken a 6 up towards the top side here as well, and Snute is in a very commanding position right now. In fact, he's got, wow, he's got 7 bases, so he's just sitting in an excellent position right now. He's got that Nidus Worm. He's got so many options available to him. In fact, 4GG is reduced to dropping off these Vikings inside the main base. He's going to try and get what damage he can. Should be able to pick off that Ultralisk cavern there, and will do that. In fact, will he? transfuses going down from the Queens. Excellently done by Snute. So he is able to force the Vikings back. Doesn't lose any tech as a price of that. Only just a, I think he lost one Queen as the only real thing that he lost there. And now Snute just sitting in this position where he's creating his own line. He's sort of sitting here as we look on the minimap there, just sort of creating this section here where he's made just a wall there basically of spine crawlers, and that's just something which is going to be difficult to push through when you're a Terran player who is still trying to deflect these various kinds of attacks that are coming through. And speaking of various attacks, look at this coming through the top section here is Snute with 12 Ultralisks. Gonna pop through here. There is one very hurt one at the front. You can expect that to fall apart straight away, and yes, it does. Snute is forced back just for the moment. Of course, M-ForGG is well versed, as we said before, in utilizing a mech style. Of course, a very popular thing in Brood War. You know, when it came to TVP, of course, it did start to rise a bit when it came to TVZ as well, but not as popular as a bio style in that particular matchup. But as we can see, Snute's still sitting on a huge total of 99 drones. This guy needs to, there you go. I was going to say, he needs to throw down some of these and perhaps even invest in some spore crawlers so that he can get over max supply there. Looks as if M-ForGG is going to push forward, though of course we've mentioned before, it's a very strong army, it's a very powerful thing, but it is very slow. And now moving out of position here, this has allowed Snute to push through. He is going to utilize as many of these Ultralisks as he can to just try and crush the economy. If he can get through the majority of these tanks here, he's already taken out the 4th base. That's down and out for the count. And now just pushing through into the natural, he should be able to take down some of the production here. And M-ForGG is doing his own damage here, unsieging the tanks. That's when you know that he is trying to just get the damage done as quickly as possible, because it is going to turn into a little bit of a base race here. And he is doing still some more excellent damage with these Vikings. Going to drop them down at the 3rd base here. Going to take out some of the economy here, but realistically, I'm not sure that's actually going to get too much done. But he is going to be able to push inside. Now moving in towards the natural base here, we'll probably see a couple of these tanks siege up once he moves into a little bit of a better position to range down some of these buildings and things. And Snute, he's done the damage. He's stopped the mining at the 3rd. He's stopped the mining at the nat, and effectively, M-ForGG's economy is now at a standstill. He's got a total of 3 SCVs, no mining. So basically, all of his hopes are hinged on this big mech attack here. If he can hold everything together against the Ultras, and I think there are some mutas out. Let's just double check. No, there's actually no mutas out. In fact, M-ForGG has taken out the spawning pool, so he has been able to stop some of the production of LiquidSnute here, and it looks as if the hive will go down. Of course, the infestation pit would have been a very powerful thing to have here. If he could get a couple of swarm hosts out, that would be excellent, but he has not been able to do that, so he will be sitting on that army consisting of 13 Ultras, 48 Lings, and that is around about it for the moment. But as we can see, M-ForGG has sort of painted himself into a little bit of a corner here. He has to be very careful with how he moves out from this position. Of course, these Ultras just down to the southern side, if he can get a good surround when the mech army now moves out of his own natural base, then he can certainly just crush through that. But M-ForGG, going to take it slow, going to take it very careful, tries to get his economy back online here at the 3rd base. We're probably... I don't know why he hasn't moved some of these orbital commands around, as he actually he has spotted that top base there. But there we go. It looks as if the mech army now going to push out. The Ultras trying to move into position here to get a good surround, at least on part of this army, and the Ultras falling down to some of these tank strikes. Of course, the tanks do 65 damage against armored units, and the Vikings continue to harass Snute. He's falling down in some of his supply count here, but it looks as if the Ultras now have swept through, taking apart the majority of this army, and that is going to be the end of M-ForGG. His tanks are down, his stores are down, and down goes this game for the Terran player. I don't think there is any way he is going to be able to recover from this. Still attempting to get some damage done with these Vikings, probably going to drop them down and take out that hatchery if he so desires, but it looks as if he is not going to, well, I guess he's just going to try and stay in the game for the moment. Of course, he's down at 58 supply. Snute's mining has been reduced quite a lot. As we can see, he's down to 57 drones, which, while not exactly, you know, nothing, is still it's kind of a small amount at this point of the game. But he's got a wonderful bank of gas. 3,000 gas is ready and waiting for him. He just needs to pick up a few more minerals, and as we can see, M-ForGG is still trying to re-establish himself right now, but it is just going to be too hard with the tanks mowing down some of those Ultralisks. He is going to be able to secure this this 4th base yet again. and it looks as if he may be able to get some mining going, but I'm very, very dubious as to the fact is if he is going to be able to do anything further in this match. Looks like Hellbats are going to continue to pump out. Of course, this is a sign, of course, in this matchup, and when you're playing mech, that a Terran player is on his last legs, when you're just starting to pull out Hellbats instead of any of those more powerful units. But of course, you know, the Hellbats still do a decent job against Zerglings and a lot of the things on the ground. And Snute forced to retreat from his, well, what is that, like the 700th base up the top side here, the 8th base, if you will. Is going to force a retreat there, gets a Nidus Worm here so he can get out of there as quickly as possible. Look at that, he's like Batman throwing down a smoke bomb and just saying, I'm out of here, bro. And with the Nidus Worm about to pop out, there it is, the drones will escape, and he's going to have to drop them out. I think the, where was the Nidus Worm? I think it's just up there, it is going to drop out the rest of those drones, going to put them back into circulation in the economy. And M-ForGG has sort of cobbled together a very interesting army. Of course, he's got these Hellbats here, which can soak up those Banelings, going to be able to take down a lot of the Lings as well. There are, of course, these tanks, and they are going to be able to do some good damage and good defense as well. But the issue at hand is that he has not got too much more production after this. He's only got these 10 SCVs, doesn't have the fourth, what is that, the 5th base up and running again, is going to be able to take out the Nidus Worm that is here. That was almost the most annoying thing in the history of StarCraft right there. A Nidus Worm putting down creep that blocks off one of your bases. That would be incredibly rage-inducing, I tell you what. But M-ForGG holding things together for the moment. A few tanks going to defend this position. His Vikings still continuing to roam across the map and take down Overlords and Overseers where he can. And he's just also keeping an eye on what the economy of Snute is at. Of course, he's aware that Snute is now down to pretty much just one main mining base, this one here in the middle section here. And if he can perhaps deny the mining at, of course, this top one and at this base at this edge here, sort of in this middle pocket of the map, then he may be able to bring it all back. And as we can see, the supply count starting to come back together here for M-ForGG, and Snute's going to have a quick look himself. He wants to see what's going on in here, how much production do you have, what are you bringing out, and he can see there's a lot of Hellbats, so he's going to have to make a decision. Well, what am I going to spend my resources on? And I would say we're probably going to see a switch back to Mutas here from Snute. The Spire is just about to finish up for what, like the 3rd time I think we've had a Spire building in this game. The question will be, can he get enough Mutalisks out to deal with these Vikings? And another interesting factor that may play itself out here is that M-ForGG is researching the drilling claws there for the Widow Mines, so we may see the Widow Mines start to pop out from the Terran player here. Snute is going to try and take another base down towards the southern side. It is very interesting that both of these players have pretty much neglected these bases. I'm really surprised to see that. Snute reestablishes his base down towards the his inner sort of 3rd base here, and does have that sieged up by M-ForGG, so he is going to lose that yet again. The Hellbats standing guard in a little conga line of units just there, but Snute going to do his own run by. He's going to try and utilize these Lings as best as possible. Now pushing across, going to take out the few remaining SCVs. Keep in mind, the SCV counter for GG has just really fallen down since the starting point of the game, but he's got some Hellbats to defend, doing an excellent job with that. And while he's taken out that base, he's sort of gotten his own economy back into a little bit of a nice shape here, up at 23 SCVs. Got those mules mining, and of course a little bit of gas coming in as well. So M-ForGG is amazingly keeping himself in this game right now. But here come those mutas that we mentioned before. 19 mutas are now out for the Zerg player, and that actually is pretty much going to be it right here. We see them clean up the tanks. They've taken out the Vikings, so there's basically no anti-air right now for the Terran player. Hellbats, unfortunately, as ridiculous as they are against light units, unfortunately they don't do too well against the light units in the sky. These mutas sweeping through with their 1-3 upgrades, going to take out most of those units, and some mines will burrow here. If he can perhaps bait those mutas in, he does bait, gets a couple of shots, and actually takes down a lot of their health here. But the problem with the Widow Mines is that when you try and utilize them to deal with mutas and things up in the sky, it's kind of like you sort of have to say, all right, just hold position there for a minute while I burrow these Widow Mines next to you. It's not something that a decent player, of course, a GM level player like Snute, is going to allow you to do. And with the mutas polishing off the remaining mining that is going on here at the right hand side of the map, it looks as if M-ForGG is definitely going to have to look at those that little button in the middle of the keyboard there, the G button, because I think it is basically over here. He is going to try and utilize these mines yet again, burrowing them into a very interesting position, just trying to cut off the retreat path. And will he get them down? Yes, he does. A triple. Nope, only gets the one. And Snute does keep the majority of those mutas alive here. He's going to actually take some of them out. That gets rid of one of the mines there. Nicely done. And Snute, with this base getting re-established, I think with that muta count up in the air, of course, these guys have ridiculous regen. Look at all of that. Just popping all the way back up. Going to be ready to go, and we'll probably see him just finish off his opponent here. Yes, there are a couple of Thors, but I mean, without without some extra support here for these Thors. In fact, he does lose a couple of these mutas here, but that is about it. And as we mentioned before, if you're you have to, it's like asking your neighbor for a cup of sugar. You have to run over and say, please, can I get that cup of sugar? Because the Widow Mines have to move across, they have to burrow, they have to not die in the process, and that can be a very difficult thing to do when you're pretty much utilizing them as your only anti-air force against the big flock of mutas. So we may see a Widow Mine catch off this pack of mutas here. In fact, yes, he does. Takes out one of the mutas, but unfortunately, it's a little bit too little to finish off the game here. And M-ForGG is, well, he's got these mutas. They are sort of cornered at the moment. If he gets a good shot off, no, he doesn't activate that mine, and he's going to push across. The Hellbats now moving through. In fact, it looks as if the economy on Snute has been brought down a little bit here. As we can see, he's down to 800 mining roughly in terms of his minerals. His gas has also been brought down quite a lot, and the Hellbats roll through, try to get some damage done with the mutas now sweeping back across. That should be it, and GG from M-ForGG. So a wonderful game, just sort of showcasing a really good mech style to utilize on Newkirk Precinct. You can also, you can use bio on this map, but I really think that mech has its own merits. I'm just very curious about not taking this base as your fourth by M-ForGG. Of course, there are advantages to taking this base in the middle here, but I'm not really sure about it. Then again, I'm not like a GM level Korean, so there is probably some more thinking behind all of that. But I hope you all enjoyed this match. A really interesting TVZ there. Of course, you can check out one of the other games that just went up on the channel, Snute versus Viper. That was actually a really cool ZvP that went for a very long time, but it is very interesting, especially if you're a Zerg player. Jump on through the channel, make sure you subscribe and have a look at that game, and I'll catch you all next time. Of course, casters and community members that have been at the, wherever it was, I can't actually remember where it was, but wherever it was for the big announcement that has been a little bit hush-hush, but has been revealed in part recently on Reddit.